Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Chloe. I do reading, writing, sometimes lifestyle vlogs, and today we are doing a reading-esque vlog. I've been putting this off for a very long time, mostly because it's been really hard for me to decide, but today I'm going to be ranking Ali Hazelwood's books in the order from my least favorite to my most favorite. And this has taken me so long to do because I could not decide the proper order. I reread a lot of her books. I re-listened to a lot of the books. And they're just really good. They just, are such a good time. Even my least favorite, they're all good. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. I have a few in my hands today. The original Love Hypothesis I lent to a friend. I read Problematic Summer Romance and Deep End on my Kindle, even though I do really want the physical copies. But, we have some visuals. I will be swinging my Kindle around and I will be looking at my phone because I have a lot of thoughts. I also really debated waiting until Mate came out, which is coming out, I looked it up last night, October 7th. It is currently September 15th. Could I have waited 3 more weeks? Perhaps. Did I really want to just talk about Ali Hazelwood books and couldn't contain myself? Yeah, so that is what we are doing today. Who knows if I'll like the next one in the kind of werewolf Omegaverse series of hers. I'm sure you'll hear about it in at least one of my reading wrap-up vlogs. Otherwise, okay, let's get started. The first book, well, technically 8th, the dead last book of Ali Hazelwood's, my least favorite, is Love on the Brain. I do not own a physical copy. I do not have this on Kindle. I rented it from Libby, and it's just, in my opinion, her weakest book. I get really sad when people tell me that they didn't like one of her books, so they just never continued reading her, the rest of her stuff. I just personally really find her writing really easy to read, really easy to digest. But I can see how if Love on the Brain was one of the first that you read, or you read it right after the Love Hypothesis and you weren't really sold on the Love Hypothesis, I can see how you wouldn't want to read the rest of her books. But I think that's not a failing of her writing, really, because I think the writing was still enjoyable. I thought Levi was a really strong male lead. I just think B fell flat. She was I know, I say this all the time about Ali's characters, but B was the most millennial that she could be. She had this whole thing where she just fainted randomly, and it was no medical reason behind that. She just did it, and it came up when she saw a spider, and then a drawing of a spider, and then she, cried every time she saw a roadkill. And it just things that I don't think in real life would ever be endearing. Levi was really endeared by the fact that she cried every time she saw a roadkill, and I was like, girl, what are we doing? When I'm recommending my books, Ali's books to people, I like to give them a kind of list order that you should read them in, and this is one that I have kind of left off. I was like, I don't think it's super relevant to any of the interconnected series where you get mentions of people's names. I really just think that you can not read this one. I thought the entire plot up to a really long point was super predictable, and then boom, I'm blanket statement now, there's gonna be so many spoilers. Boom, a gun is pulled. What? I was in shock with the gun. I was like, oh, a real gun, he's gonna shoot her. She really, you know what? I didn't predict that, man. I thought the rest of the series the book was really predictable. Obviously, he was the guy she was chatting to on Twitter. Obviously, he had been in love with her the whole time and not actually, hated her. But the gun? that was crazy. I just had to mention that. Back to the characters, I was really disappointed with B as a character because of how strong Levi was. Like, Levi's whole thing is that he came from a really stilted, like emotionally stunted family, but then he did the work by going to therapy and becoming a more open person because he didn't want to be like them. He headed this project because he had seen his best friend die tragically in front of him, and that was his best friend's life work. And even like when originally like B was engaged to the guy Tim, and Tim said, hey, like, you make B uncomfortable, like, stop talking to her, he literally went out of his way to not make her uncomfortable and avoid her. And I just thought he was so strong. And then what did B have? That's mean. That was mean of me to say. But that's what I'll say. Kind of last thoughts about this. I thought that B thinking that Levi hated her went on for way too long, and Levi thinking B was married went on for a perfect amount of time. That little thing, that whole plot, I really did enjoy that. I enjoyed Levi. I enjoyed the plot of him thinking he was in love with a married woman who he could never have. The yearning there, that was great. But if this was one of the books that you read and you're like, I don't think Ali Hazelwood's for me, please try another one of her books. And honestly, if the plot doesn't do it for you, but you want some of Ali's signature spicy scenes, they're still good. That's what I'll say. Number 7 in the ranking of least favorite to favorite Ali books, we have, this might be surprising, maybe not if you know me, Not in Love, with Rue and Eli. And something that these last 2 books have in common are how much I really loved the male main characters and wasn't a fan of the female main characters. And I think that's maybe because, like, I like seeing myself a little bit in the main characters, which you'll see later. It probably impacts why I rank other books high. But I just felt like, Eli Kilgore, please, where do I find a man like you? Chapter 33? Anyways, I personally just didn't like Rue as a main character. I said this woman does not need to be in a relationship. This woman needs to be put into a rage room. That's what she needs. And I think I said that in one of my other reviews of the book, but I just felt like a relationship is not what she needed in her current moment in time. The biggest thing for me that I couldn't get past is that I really didn't like how the entire concept was set up, which, to be fair, it's the whole premise of the book, which is that they met on a dating app just to hook up, and then, you know, things went on from there. I just did not like that premise, and I knew what I was getting into, right? Like, I know that I don't like that, and I knew I was getting into that, so I think I was already pre-biased. I had, like, preconceived notions about it, but at the same time, that is such a reflection of, like, modern dating, and I feel like you always see so many meet cutes that you never get the realistic of, yeah, they were just meeting to, like, hook up and things went from there. So that kind of gives it a little bit of some points. I will also say, reading Problematic Summer Romance and seeing more of these 2 characters actually made me like this book a little bit more. Also, I do think, personally, I think Rue is a little bit like, to me, I think she's very autistic coded, and I do enjoy that headcanon. I don't know if Ali's ever confirmed it, but I think, to me, that makes a lot of sense with her character, and I like that about her. I had some issues with the way that Eli kind of felt a little insta-lovey with him, where, you know, honestly what he could have done is just simply walked away from the situation, but he was just finding himself obsessed with this girl that he met on a dating app, and I think I got kind of the instant love feeling because of the premise, because the fact that they met on a dating app. Ali couldn't make him continuing to be interested in her purely like a sexual thing, like she wanted, because we're not gonna root for a guy like that. So that's why she gave him like this is very much like he fell first and he fell harder situation, where it just felt like it happened really quickly, but it's because we needed to root for him, if that makes sense. I think it does. I think it's making sense in my brain. I just felt like as a slow burn girl, I think just I was not set up for success. This book was not set up for success with me because of my preferences. Sex is also a very central part of this plot, and it has some darker themes, which she actually says that she has a little author's note warning people, this is a little bit darker than what I normally write. But you know what? She knows her audience. She knows what they come here for, what we come here for. And if that's what you want, this is a really good one. I think if you're okay with a little bit of less plot and reused plot, that's another thing. But if you're ready, or if you're okay with a little bit of less plot in favor of more spicy scenes, again, you might really enjoy this. But that plot part where she reused a plot of basically a woman, like Rue, the main character's mentor, kind of turning on her or being kind of the main villain in the story. Like, I think in the end she tries to sell Rue's patent so she can get money to buy her company back. I just felt like it really reflected Elsie from Love Theoretically. It reflected her, where it was actually her mentor that had turned on her and was holding her back. And the fact that it was like, I think the fact that it was a woman mentor who turned on another woman, I was just so angry. Like, not to be misandrist on the channel, but I feel like a man turning on a woman is expected. That's not the word I want to use. It is so common that I don't think it surprised me. And I think the fact that it was Florence turning on Minami, but also turning on Rue, just, it hit that much harder and made me that much angry, which, you know what, I think it did what it needed to do. I was just a little bit annoyed that there felt like it was a reused plot point. But even though this is like second to last, I still give it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I still think I read it in a day. It was, she does things to me. I just really love Ali Hazelwood. Number 6 in my ranking is Bride. You may notice, Chloe, that does not look like the cover for Bride. You would be right. And that is because I'm going to shamelessly plug one of my last videos that I did where I made my own book sleeves. Can you see that it's a little bit messed up? It doesn't perfectly line up. That was a mistake. We will fix it later. But yes, I was ended up very proud of how these turned out, so go watch that video. So like, go watch that video if you're interested. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about why I put Bride at number 6. So this was one of the books that I did not read to reread to make this video, and I sat down one day while my car was getting an oil change and I wrote this script for, there are so many motorcycles outside my apartment, I'm so sorry, but I wrote down kind of like what I was gonna say about all these books, and genuinely this book, I have little to no recollection of the actual plot. It is all vibes, no plot for me, for my memory of this book. I think, again, even though it's number 6, I really enjoyed it. I remember loving it, like devouring it while I was in Colorado. And what can I say about it? In middle school, I was a Wattpad girl. I was on Wattpad a lot, and when I was not reading One Direction fan fiction, even though I was not a Directioner, I was reading werewolf books. You were either a werewolf girl or a vampire girl, and I was a werewolf girl. Mostly because I really, really, really love the trope of soulmates. Throw in that his mate is the one person it really shouldn't be, and that she also can't feel the same connection that he can, like biologically, like he's drawn to her, he knows that she's his mate, but because she doesn't feel that way, there's that layer of she doesn't have to love him, she could go love somebody else, like, and he would just have to watch and like know that he could never have her. That really does something for me, man, honestly. Misery, of course, has the millennial twang that all of most of Ali's main characters have. And again, it can be forgiven because we get a brooding man who has to take care of a little girl. Lo is guardian of his little sister, and I love that trope. I love that trope. Like, genuinely, that's the recipe for crack for me. And let's talk about why this is slow down. And genuinely, I remember in the time thinking that it was going to be 5 stars for me, because really this was a book for my inner child. That sounds crazy knowing the scenes that are in it, but it healed the part of me in middle school that was on Wattpad and like, like, am I weird for really liking these books? Or like when I would like recommend them to my friends, they'd be like, I'm just gonna stick to my One Direction fanfiction. It healed a little bit of something inside me. But what really, the reason it wasn't a 5-star for me was there's a scene at the end where, of course, Misery's a virgin and she sleeps with Lo, and Lo decides that, I think she's a virgin, yeah. But basically what annoys me is that Misery and Lo sleep together, and then he breaks up with her to protect her after they've slept together. So of course she feels used by him, which of course she would feel that way, and that just really annoyed me. Like, I'm breaking up with you to protect you even though I'm in love with you and we just slept together. Like, that actually really pissed me off. Like, I had to step away for a second, because why is that a trope that happens? Why is that something that I see genuinely like all the time? Why? Like, it happens again later in like a different context, in like a different book that I'm going to talk about, and I liked the way the other one played out, but that one just annoyed the out of me because anyways, I can't even keep talking about it. But that was why I did not give this one a 5-star. But I'm very excited to read Mate. I think I probably will have to read this one maybe to understand what happens next in Mate, because I read the synopsis for it and it feels like there's actual plot that I should probably know. Because I remember like people were betrayed and things like that in this. I should probably get on that. But yeah. We are now at number 5, and this may come as a shock to people because I recommend the book to so many people, but that's because it is the gateway drug into Ali Hazelwood, and that is The Love Hypothesis. I don't have anything to wave around because, like I said, I lent it to someone. I lent it to a lovely little receptionist at the country club that I work at, and it's really funny because her daughter's name is Olive, and she's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to read, and I was like, just call her Olivia, it's fine. But I'm gonna be waving around my Kindle because I need something to do with my hands while we talk about this. The Love Hypothesis. I recently reread it and I was just like, yes. When I say reread, I listened to the audiobook. I listened to the audiobook for The Love Hypothesis, and I listened to the one for Problematic Summer Romance when I was kind of doing my reread of it. And the difference between the two narrators is just so funny because for this one, like The Love Hypothesis, the main, like, there was only one voice actor reading it, so she did all the male voices too, and it was just funny. But moving on to actually what I think about The Love Hypothesis. How I feel about The Love Hypothesis is that that is my hallmark for how I rank Ali Hazelwood books. Like, you're either better than The Love Hypothesis or they're worse than The Love Hypothesis. Worse. Like, I just don't enjoy them as much. So that's why the other 3 were lower. And whatever, that actually is like the definition of the ranking, but I always compare the books to The Love Hypothesis. That's just what I do. When I recommend Ali Hazelwood books to people, again, this is not her strongest book, but I really do recommend people start with it because the way that she writes and connects all of her characters together, like, to get the full enjoyment out of this, like, you need to read this before you read Love Theoretically. You need to read this before you read Deep End, just because then you get the full, like, heart clench, like, when you see them again in those books. And I think it's a really good intro into the way that Ali writes. The chug and the millennial humor is truly off the charts in this one. Not as bad as Love on the Brain, but it's what she does best. And you just kind of have to, like, acknowledge it and accept it. And something that I did not realize, because I was trying to remember, like, or think about who was the closest in age to me of the Ali Hazelwood books, which I think that's partly why I really enjoy her books, because I'm not in the stage of life where I really want to read about college students. Even that's starting to feel way too young for me. I'm 25. And I really do not want to read romance between, like, high schoolers. Like, I'm reading Percy Jackson right now, and I feel like I think there's gonna be a romance in it. Like, I've never read it before. I'm going in, like, pretty blind. But they're, like, middle schoolers, and that's okay with me just because, like, this is for kids. But, like, I don't want to read about, like, high schoolers, like, fucking anymore. But I was trying to remember which one of Ali's characters was my age, or closest to me in age, and I think it's Olive. I think she's 26. I'm gonna be 26 soon. I didn't realize, because one of my least favorite tropes, this is gonna be surprising for what comes later in the video, is age gap. I normally really don't like age gap, and I didn't realize until recently. I think Adam's like 7 or 8 years older than Olive, and I did not even notice that the first time I read through it. So, because it wasn't really acknowledged, like, that was not, like, a big thing that was in the way. The thing that was in the way was the professor's, like, grad student dynamic. But I was like, oh my god, like, me and her are similar age. So that's why I think, like, I notice the millennial humor a lot more, because I'm like, you're my age, why are you making this joke? I'm also no longer really a fan of the fake dating trope. Like, I keep saying, like, which is weird because of this, which is weird because that's kind of partly of a book I'm writing. But I used to be a much bigger fan, like, when I started writing my book. That's why that's, like, the main trope. I think maybe I've just been in it for so long, I'm like, okay, I can maybe do without reading about that. But unpopular opinion, I do kind of enjoy miscommunication, but, like, kind of the breed of miscommunication where it leads to, like, this big blow up argument where they both realize they saw something wrong, and if they had just communicated better, then they could have been together sooner, or they realize, like, oh my god, like, we've both thought this, but we're, like, madly in love with each other. And I think it's that explosion argument that usually comes with this trope that I eat it up. But continuing to talk about the fake dating, I think I didn't like it in this one as much as I might like it in other places, is because of how much Olive felt like she didn't want it. Like, she did not actually want the fake dating thing to be happening. And I never realized how pushy On was, like, the friend. Like, when she, like, pushes Olive to, can you just, like, sit on your boyfriend's lap? Why don't you just go put a bunch of sunscreen, like, essentially rub it into his back in front of the whole department? Oh my god, your man just pushed a car out of the way and saved all these people trapped in this parking lot. Why don't you go give him a kiss for being so strong and heroic? Like, and On, calm down. Calm down, girl. And I think because Olive was so, like, squirmy and didn't like it, that then I didn't like it. And in real life, I would tell my friend, like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, to On, like, can you stop trying to push me to, like, be touchy with my boyfriend? Anyways, that was just why I think the fake dating trope this time, it didn't work for me. And Adam, at the end, going absolutely feral on Tom when he finds out all the things that he said to Olive and that he was one that made Olive cry, not some random people she had overheard. That was so attractive. I cannot wait. Oh my god, I cannot wait to watch that in the movie. At this point in time, we've all seen the promo from Lily Reinhart as Olive. I think that is great casting. And the fact that oh my god, what's his name? Tom Bateman, is that his name? The one who's gonna be playing Adam. The fact that he's Daisy Ridley's wife, you're kidding me. That is hilarious to me. This right here is the point in the video where I admit I was a Raylo shipper. I never read fanfiction, I swear. So I didn't read this when it was like first, like actually like the Raylo fanfiction, but I eat that up. I love picking out who is supposed to be who. Like Holden obviously is Poe, and then I thought Malcolm was supposed to be Finn, and On is Rose, and just like connecting who's who. And Tom is, oh my god, I can't remember his name, but the blonde one, the blonde evil one. I just loved connecting who was who, and I cannot wait to watch it. I can't wait. I feel like that is just gonna make me love the Love Hypothesis even more when I get to see it on the big screen. It literally cannot come sooner. It can't. But that was my number 5 ranking. Now on to number 4, which actually is really crazy to me that this is my number 4 ranked now. Whenever I talk to people about Ali Hazelwood, whenever I recommend books by Ali Hazelwood, I had been telling people that this was number 1. This was my favorite. Like, I would always tell people, read The Love Hypothesis so you can read this one next. And she just, it's not that she's fallen from grace, it's just that Ali has just really outdone herself with my top 3 favorites. And my number 4 favorite is Love Theoretically. I think this holds a really special place in my heart because it takes place in Boston, and I just really loved being able to like imagine where they were, like the movie theater they go to. In my head, Elsie lives in Allston, like me, Allston Brighton area, because of course she would when she talks about her roaches and the weird spiders and how dingy the apartment is. Yeah, that is Allston. And then also I had canon that Jack lives like in Back Bay, and he has, because how else are you gonna have that nice apartment? It's really fun like being able to like imagine where they are. But I used to think that Elsie was the most relatable character to me. I think personality wise she does this chameleon thing, which as a physical therapist who sees, you know, more than 10 patients in a day and has to kind of like adjust my personality or like what I talk about per patient, I just feel like I really kind of related to her. And Jack being the only person who can see through her facade and wants her to just be her. It gets me. Especially that line where she's like, why can't like I figure you out? Why can't I figure out what you want? He's like, well, did you ever consider like you're what I want? You don't have to change yourself. I enjoyed that. While she is most relatable, the millennial jokes really did pop off with this one, which as an adjunct professor, I think she's in her late 20s. I don't know. I feel like she kind of reminds me of a professor that I had, like just personality wise. So in my head, that's what Elsie looks like. I remember being so gagged by the plot the first time. Like when you find out that it's Dr. L, like it's not like her who didn't have the opportunities. It wasn't her that wasn't good enough for all these, like, it wasn't that people didn't want her, it's that they did want her. And Dr. L was just telling them no and not passing along the opportunities like a mentor should. That was crazy. Again, I know I said that when I was talking about the mentor thing, like, I don't know, I'm not shocked by a man kind of sabotaging a woman. I just remember though, I was like, wow, of course it was him that actually did this to her. And it wasn't that she just like, because she's so impressive. She's such an impressive person, as they keep saying to her. But I think that the reason it fell down in the rankings for me, because upon my second reread, I was just running into cringe situation after cringe situation that just made me like squirm so much that I might reread it a third time at some point in my life. But I was like, okay girl, I need to take a break from this, because especially the scene where they're outside the movie theater and George accidentally reveals to Elsie that she got the job, and she just like in a moment of like overwhelming like just emotion. She just sprints away. I imagine that happening in the Common, like they're outside the like AMC theater in the Common, and she just sprints towards Back Bay and he chases her. That's why I headcanon that he lives there. It's just, I loved envisioning that, but it was so uncomfortable to read. And then I had no recollection that Elsie, like running to do her love confession to Jack, takes place in front of all their future coworkers, because she stops him as he's coming out of a meeting, or like she's by his office as he comes out of a meeting, and she like goes to confess her love after he wrote that like think piece, or like retracted his like previous statement, and just basically was trying to like show the world that he loved Elsie. Like he did it despite thinking that she might not want him, and he gave her the space that she needed and all that. I think it really, really, really is hard for me to choose a favorite main male character or the love interest, just because they're all so well written. Like the joke of he was written by a woman. Yeah, of course all of her main characters are written by a woman. She's a woman, but they are the quintessential like perfect man that Ali knows exactly what her readers want. And I feel like Jack might be my favorite. I think me and him have similar humor, the way that like the things that he says that he finds funny, and the way I just love a man who banters with his grandmother. I think his relationship with his grandma is adorable, and he's, oh my god, I love him. Yeah, I feel like I don't actually have a ton to say about this one, even though for so long I would tell people it was my favorite, but all of her books are so good. I can't. This is actually a harder video to like record because my thoughts are just jumbling over themselves. Ugh. We are now entering into the home stretch of my top 3 favorite Ali Hazelwood books, and honestly it is really hard to decide these top 3. Like the top 2, as I was rereading and trying to decide this, they were flip-flopping, and this one, a few times I was like, no, I like this one more. I think genuinely it just depends on what I'm in the mood for, and it's so hard for me to decide. But what I ended up deciding on for my 3rd favorite is Check and Mate, Ali Hazelwood's only YA. I almost said YA fantasy, her only YA romance book. I think that works in her favor for why I really like this, because as I was saying, I think that really works well in her favor from my opinion, because sometimes I do feel like spice is just simply too much. Again, you're gonna be shocked at what my top 2 are. But I think that I really enjoyed that this was closed door because it was YA, but before we start talking about that, let's talk about some other stuff. I genuinely did not think I was going to enjoy this book as much as I did, but I sat down on a Sunday and I just whipped this out. So many of Ali's books I've read in just one go. I usually save it for the plane when I'm going on long haul flights, because I can just sit down and completely lock in. But this was kind of like Not in Love. I sat down in my little reading chair on a Sunday and I just devoured it because I could not put it down. You know what? Actually, I put it down once to go play a game of chess. And ever since then, I've actually really, really gotten into playing chess. I want to learn how to like do openings and like, you know, memorize openings and different things, but I don't have time for that right now. But so good. The concept of a guy getting his ass handed to him in a game of chess by literally like a nobody, and just being so obsessed with her afterwards, that's peak literature for me, actually. And also peak conflict for me is that Mallory thinks that that's the only reason that he's into her, because he's obsessed with the fact that she beat him, and so she doesn't want to play with him again because she's afraid that if he wins then he'll lose interest in her, and she's convinced that he will win and that it was a fluke the first time. Mallory! Oh my god, it was just really, I was kicking my little feet and I was like, ugh. Like, this is another one of those where I am glad that it's closed door because they are so much younger than me. But I was kicking my feet, I was squealing, I was like, ee! I really, really, really loved the I really, really, really loved the demisexual representation from Sawyer. I thought that was she has a lot of like just LGBTQ like small representation, like even within her main characters, because she always has she's never written a same-sex couple as the main characters in her book, not yet. Maybe Miss Hazelwood might write that one day, though I'm not sure she will, because I read somewhere that she kind of bases all of her male main characters off of her husband, and that's why they're all so big and hulking and she's so tiny. But I really like that representation of Sawyer being like, no, like I am in it for the person. So many loud sounds around my apartment now, I'm so sorry. There's one specific scene that I cannot get out of my head, and actually I got one of my patients, she read this and we talked about it after, and we both thought that this was hilarious, that when Mallory finds everything out, like she finds out that the only reason she got her like chess residency is because Sawyer like paid for it, basically. And so she's like screaming at him, yelling at him, like just like so angry that he did that. And she's like, and I bet you got me fired from the mechanic too. Or she blames it on him, like, oh, so you're the reason I was fired. And he's like, no, but I wish it was. I wish I had done that. He just like doubles down. Yes, thank you, Sawyer. I love all of her characters are so good. And then when they like kiss for the first time and he's like, touch take rule, because like in chess, like if you touch a piece you have to like move it, and him saying that like she has to have him now, like I've seen criticisms that the conversations between Mallory and her teenage sisters, because I can't remember exactly how old the middle one is, but they're like at least middle school and high school, that it's felt like grown woman talking, but I didn't really feel that way. I thought it felt pretty natural for the sisters. And Mallory's middle sister, I cannot remember her name. What is her middle sister's name? Her middle sister, Sabrina? Yeah, I think it's Sabrina. Okay, Sabrina and Darcy. Darcy is the younger one, and Sabrina is the one that pissed me the fuck off, where literally she just was putting Mallory under so much stress. She's like, are you gonna pay for my roller derby? Are you gonna pay for my roller derby? Like, girl, you see that your mom has like expensive medications, and you see that you guys are struggling. Like, maybe, you know, chill out. I understand you want a roller derby, but maybe, I don't know, it's just like pissed me off. But the littlest sister is secretly learning how to play chess because she wanted to be like her big sister, was so cute. And when Daphne, I think that's how her name's pronounced, but when Daphne, a female mentor, was introduced, I feel like I was so, I don't want to say traumatized, but I was very much on alert, thinking that Daphne was going to backstab Mallory in some way, and that was a very nice change of pace, that it actually wasn't that. And in the end, Mallory is the one that kind of hurt Daphne, and she had to apologize to her and go back, and like, it was somebody else. It was, God, what was his name? Basically the other guy who had residency, who ended up like, him and Daphne ended up being together. He was like, get your head out of your ass and go apologize to Daphne, who gave you all these opportunities. Who cares if your boyfriend paid for the residency? She is the one who reached out and gave you this opportunity, and like, she didn't have to. She could have said no. And I liked that. I liked that she had to check her biases and learn to not take her anger out on other people who were just trying to help her. So yeah, back to my unpopular opinion of, I sometimes really prefer a closed door romance. Like, kissing's fine. Sometimes I just want a sweet little romance. And when I'm in the mood for spice, I will read spice. But sometimes I just don't want all that. And I felt this was very tasteful. The touch take rule scene was so cute. And I think the only thing, literally my only real complaint about this book is the ages, but it's a YA book, so I can't even complain about that. It's very good. This is a standalone that, if you're watching this and you've never read any of Ali's books, this is So good. A great introduction, and you know, not too much spice. Again, very little spice. I want to reread this. Actually, this is one of the ones that I didn't reread. I might reread it. We are almost at the end of my ranking, and genuinely this decision is very, very hard for me, but there are certain factors that make the one who took number 2 take the second spot and the one that took the first place spot. Even though there's 2 like major flaws for them with me, they were so enjoyable to read. But I decided that my number 2, my second favorite Ali Hazelwood book is, I don't have it on me because I read it on Kindle, Deep End. It was so good. I read Deep End, and my number 1 ranking book, I read Deep End on the plane to England when I went, and I read the other book on the way back, and I sat and I locked in. On the way back, my seatmate was like, I'm so impressed that you just sat there and read for the last like 5 hours, because I was talking to her, she was so sweet. And I was like, yeah, I finished it. She's like, you finished it? I was like, yeah, girl, it's so good. And I was a little drinky and I recommended all the books to her, so I hope if she read them, she didn't think I was a freak. But I was really lucky when reading Deep End, because if you guys know, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, I'm gonna tell you, this is her spiciest book yet. There's a lot in there, and as I was reading this, I had the whole row next to me completely empty. So halfway through the flight, I like moved, it was like a triple seater, I moved to, it was only double on the first flight. I like put my back up against the window, and I was like reading it, because I was so scared that somebody was gonna be like from the other aisles was gonna be like reading it over my shoulder, and I couldn't handle that, somebody knowing that what I was reading on that plane. But there's just so many good things to say about it. I wasn't really sure if I would enjoy the college romance part of it. Like I said, now that I'm 25, I just feel like I don't really want to read about undergrad college students. I do like reading about grad students, and like PhD candidates, I guess. But I think I'm past the point in my life where I want to like read about college kids, which is why I've never read Icebreaker. I've never read, there's a lot that I haven't read, but I think she handled it really well, where like Scarlett and Lucas were very STEMmy still. They were both like gonna be applying to med school. Scarlett was still like super smart and really focused on her studies. Scarlett is one of my favorite female characters of Ali's. I will also defend forever that Scarlett is a woman in STEM, because I saw people that were saying that being in med school or applying to med school is not STEM. I'm a physical therapist, and I was in a sorority for women in STEM, and I constantly had to defend that I was like, you know, healthcare is science. Science is part of STEM. People might disagree with me, but I genuinely feel that way. So I loved Scarlett being, you know, going to med school. And I also loved that she had been in physical therapy, and that was kind of her whole deal, that, you know, she, if you don't know, I'll tell you again, the premise is that she like hurts herself, and she like doing a dive, and then she like gets, what did Simone Biles call, like the spins? Is that what it's called? The twisties, that's what it's called, the twisties. She gets the twisties because she does this dive, and all these like factors contribute to it, and then she really hurts herself. She like tears her labrum, she gets a concussion, she does like all these, like dislocates her shoulder, I think too. She gets like all these things that happen to her, and then it's a year later after she's done all of her physical therapy, and I'm like, and she's still doing her physical therapy exercises. I'm like, yes girl, yes, keep doing those PT exercises. And I liked also the psychology behind it, because, not to go on a soapbox, but a lot of PT, like when they say physical therapist, like the therapist part is actually a lot of like emotional regulations and the way that your body kind of, or your brain rewires itself after you have like an injury, and like the body can be completely healed, but like the memory is still there, and like the brain connection, the brain body connection. I'm done talking about it, but you get what I'm saying. I love seeing it. At first I was not having it with the premise, because the premise basically is that Scarlett and Lucas, those are the main two, that Scarlett or that Lucas has a girlfriend named Penn, and Penn and him have been dating for 7 years. So like since they were, I think they're 21, like basically since they were teenagers, because they were both like in the swimming world. And you find out more about like their situation later, which I think really like explains it. But Penn really, or Scarlett really looks up to Penn, and it's like kind of her role model, that she's like in awe that they're on the same team and that they're becoming friends. And Penn breaks up with Lucas because she wants to go see other people, even though that's not why she says that she breaks up with him. But she basically sets Scarlett and Lucas up, and she's like, oh, you guys are into the same weird kinky things, like you two should sleep together. And I was like, oh my god. But it truly does work out for the best. And I also really think, because you know sometimes when characters won't get together and you're like, literally what is wrong with you? What is getting in the way? B and Levi. B, what is getting in the way? But I think that the fact that Lucas and Penn, or Scarlett's role model Penn, had been dating for so long, and like Penn had said like, you guys should just be physical, and like had made so many little barbs and digs, that it really made it really realistic for me that Scarlett wouldn't give in and date Lucas, even though they obviously like both really like felt something for each other. And I think that that created like a realistic barrier between them. A very specific scene that I think about it a lot, and this is kind of like what I was referring to when we were talking about Bride, that after they sleep together for the first time, Lucas like punishes himself for wanting Scarlett so much that he doesn't contact her for a while. And she finds out, so basically he's not talking to her, and she's like, what the fuck, like, oh, so is that all he wanted, just like sex? And then when she's talking to Penn, I believe, Penn kind of like gives off the like, oh yeah, like when Lucas really wants something, like he'll deny himself it because he thinks he's trying to control himself and his urges and how much he wants. Like the more he wants something, the more he avoids it. And Scarlett realizes, oh, that's what's going on here, and she calls him out for it, and she says, no, you don't get to do that to me. Like I am not like an ice cream. I am not like something that, like a material object. You don't just get to decide when you're done with me. And she breaks up with him. Like there's like a second act, a really early breakup, and I respected her so much for it. Like she specifically puts her foot down and tells him that he doesn't get to resent himself for wanting her, and if he does, like that's not what they're gonna do. And I felt like Scarlett and Lucas, like their traumas were equally balanced. I think, again, this is kind of going on to what my complaint was with Love on the Brain, where Levi had such strong motivations and I felt like B had nothing. I felt Scarlett and Lucas were so evenly matched, where, you know, like it's Scarlett recovering from her injury, getting over that mental block, and like not only that, but she also has the trauma of her father and her adoptive mother being the only person she really has, and like she's from the Midwest. But also Lucas, like his whole thing being that he used to be so in love with swimming and put it over his family commitments, and then his mother dies of cancer. I believe that's what she died of. And him like resenting himself for like, that's so good. And then also that leading to, that's kind of the reason why him and Penn were so like bonded, because she really supported him in his time of need when they were like 14 years old. And I thought it was like a really realistic representation of partners who outgrow each other. Is that like the way to say it? I don't know. All I gotta say is Penn pissed me off. But I like how also Lucas like acknowledged it, where he's like, Penn was really there for me in a time of need. And like that's why I feel so, because he was doing so much stuff for her too, like after she gets broken up with, and then the drug scandal and all of that, where he like Penn keeps taking him away from Lucas. And he explains to like Scarlett, like this isn't like a love thing, like a romantic love thing, it's that she's genuinely one of my best friends because of all the stuff we've gone through. my favorite thing about Lucas is that he did not play about Scarlett from the beginning. Like, so the whole thing with like also Lucas and Penn is that like they were like not like super sexually compatible, so they were trying to like spice things up. And we know this because when Scarlett and Lucas are at some like swim competition and like a guy in the elevator is like, hey Lucas, like who's this? And they start speaking in like, I can't remember, Danish maybe? That's the language they speak. And basically is trying to like have a threesome with the two of them because that's what he used to do with Penn. And he's like, no, like she's off limits, like not this one. Because then you find out like the reason why Penn set Scarlett and Lucas up in the beginning. She goes, oh, I already know you think she's cute. It's because he says, I asked for you. Because he never... really like never like initiated like who like they would have the threesome with, but he really wanted Scarlett. So he did not play about her from the beginning. And then we're gonna talk about Penn in a second, but when Penn tries to call them out for like being together and he's like, no, you do not get to be mad about this because, and just goes off on her. But let's talk about Penn. Let's talk about that girl for a second. I wanted to punch Penn and give her like a reality check so badly through most of this. Like, so first of all, you break up with your boyfriend of 7 years because you're not sexually compatible. That's totally fine. And you want to see other people. And then, first of all, like, the whole thing is that Scarlett kind of reaches out to Penn and she's like, hey, like the stuff that you're saying that Lucas is into that you're not into, I'm into that, let me give you advice, like if you're okay with it. And then she goes and spills that to Lucas and she's like, you guys are into the same kinky, freaky stuff, like why don't you guys hook up? Annoying. And then she would make all these little barbs like, well, I mean, like a relationship totally just based on sex like has no way of being like, or making it than like our relationship where we met and loved each other as children or as teenagers. And Scarlett's there like, that was mean. She just like was so backhanded, even though Scarlett literally isolated herself by picking Penn over these mean girls, which as she should, but she defended her. She like isolated herself like on purpose because she would rather be isolated than hang out with girls that are putting down her best friend. And Scarlett was always there for her. Scarlett was such a girl's girl. And then Scarlett wins first place after getting the twisties, like overcoming it, like having such like a monumental moment. And then Lucas comes to congratulate her and they kiss. And then Penn has the audacity to be like, what are you doing? And try to turn the rest of the diving team against Scarlett just because she's upset that the guy she willingly broke up with has moved on. But that also gave like a really good scene where Lucas was like, no. And then I did like that. Then the other girls from the diving team reached out and they're like, we're so sorry that we assumed like Penn spilled the secret. Like she revealed everything that happened to all of us and like, we don't blame you. And it was just, Penn pissed me off. And the fact that Ali gives two female friendships too many second chances. Like in Love on the Brain, Tim is Bee's ex-fiance who cheats on her with her best friend. And she gives Annie, I think that was her name, she gives Annie a redemption arc so her and Bee can be friends again after that. No. And I genuinely don't think that Penn and Scarlett should have been friends again. And there's like an ending scene where Penn is talking about where Scarlett and Lucas are engaged and Penn is like, oh, I can't, like my best friend is engaged, talking about Scarlett, and she doesn't mention, it says something about like she doesn't even mention that like the fiance she's engaged to is like her ex-boyfriend. Yeah, she shouldn't. Oh my god. Penn really pissed me off. I just can't get over the fact that Scarlett's moment was ruined and she couldn't accept the first place medal because Penn stole her moment. Oh, So, the reason why this is not my first pick, even though I think about it constantly, I really, really enjoyed it. It simply is that there's too many sex scenes. Like, it is a little bit too spicy for me too quickly. I like a little bit more build up, but you know, again, I knew what I was going into once you really figure it out soon, like quickly what's gonna happen, and I knew it was one of her spicier books. I think she also, again, put another warning in the beginning that it's spicier than her others. Loved it. That's just my only complaint. But it was fantastic. It was fantastic. And I genuinely feel like from day to day, this flip-flops with my first choice. So I don't even know if I can confidently say it's my number 2. And finally, we're gonna talk about my number 1 at this moment in time favorite, and that is Problematic Summer Romance. Like, I just re-listened to, well, I just listened to the audiobook because the first time I read it on the plane back from England, and it was really, I was kind of squirming in my seat at the end where I'm like, I had been talking to my seatmate and I was like, I hope she's not looking over my shoulder to read what I'm reading right now. But the audiobook too, I really recommend you just like read this straight through, like before reading or listening to the audiobook. But the audiobook, the voice actress was so good, and I liked how they used like men for like the action, like the male voices, even though it's like totally not necessary. But and Hark's voice is a little bit deeper than one may expect. It was so good. The voice acting was really good. But I think that for me, the writing and the characters were so good that I can really ignore that it centers on my least favorite trope, which is age gap. I hate an age gap, which is why when I reread The Love Hypothesis, I was in genuine shock that it was like that there was like an 8-ish year age gap. I was like, wait, really? I'm glad I hadn't noticed that at the beginning. But I just think that it's usually when they say it so much, like you're so young, like which they did in this one, that it usually gets on my freaking nerves. But I just loved the rest of everything so much that I could forgive it. I loved Maya, and I think it's because we finally moved away from the millennial humor. I will say that there was a little bit of like a haha, she's Gen Z zest, because what can I really think? Like there was one specific one, like, oh my god, where they're like, how often do you think he thinks of the Roman Empire? Like, which was such like, that's such a snapshot in time, like when everybody was asking like the guys in their lives, like, how often do you think of the Roman Empire? And everybody finding out for some reason men think about it a lot, like daily, some of them. Like that was a cultural moment in time, and she like is like, oh, like here's my Gen Z character. But that was just like kind of like jarring. Didn't hate it though, but I really liked Maya. I liked how she was not afraid to say what she wanted. She was not afraid to call Hark out for things and put her foot down. I did, upon the listen to the audiobook, I felt like she was a little bit manipulative when she would be like, oh, so I'm ugly. Maybe it was the way that it was read, because the way that I was reading it, like when I read it, I thought that she genuinely was just like, so I'm just like not good enough for you. Like that's what it is. Like age means nothing. It's because I'm not pretty, I'm not smart. Like just, I felt like when I was reading it, it was more of like a self-esteem thing, versus when the voice actress was reading it, it felt more manipulative to me, where she was like, oh, so it's because I'm not pretty, right? And I think I prefer my original interpretation. I'm not sure how it was supposed to be interpreted, but that's how I interpreted it, and I liked it more, which is why I would recommend you read the book before you listen to the audiobook if that's something you're interested in. I also really loved that, so, you know, again, all the women in STEM, or all the women in Ali's books typically are women in STEM, and Maya is just this like really impressive person where she's gone to multiple like universities in multiple different countries, she's gone to grad school, she's done all these really impressive things, like she worked with George, like that was a really cute like nod to Love Theoretically. She worked with all these people and all these companies wanted her, but she just wanted to be a teacher, she wanted to be with kids, she wanted to work with kids, and she was so afraid of like telling her brother that, because she thought he would be upset with her, because then the way that he gave up so much stuff to raise her wouldn't have been worth it. it was so good, and I love that she still chose to follow like her dream of teaching children, and she did it. I really liked it. I liked that part of it because yes, women in STEM, girl boss, but also like teachers are girl bosses too, and smart and deserving of like that being what somebody wants to do. I loved that part of it. The age gap was a really hard thing for me, just because simply about how Hark makes it a point to call her a child. He calls her a brat. Every like scene where they're arguing, he mentions how much younger she is. And she's 15 years younger, and I'm 2 years older than her. She's supposed to be 23, I'm 25. If she was 25 and he was 35, like the 10-year age gap, or she was slightly older, that would make a little bit easier for me. I just felt like I was looking at a girl fresh out of college. I was like, Maya, no, Maya, what are you doing? It was really hard, because then also there's this little sick part of my brain that's like, oh my god, what, like when he's 60 she'll be 45, when she's 35 he'll be 50. I'm like, girl, these are fictional characters. They exist in this world. They're gonna be forever like 23 and 38, but you don't need to think about it that much. But it is more helpful to know that the reason that he keeps mentioning the age gap is because he's trying to convince himself that it won't work, and he's trying to like put that limit on himself. But I just wish he like hadn't mentioned it in every single conversation they had. One of my favorite parts about this, because I get such bad like secondhand embarrassment, is that the main conflict of this story, yes, it was the fact that Hark and Maya couldn't be together because of Hark's convincing himself that he's too old for her, and that was like this whole thing. But I liked that the kind of more central like plot issues didn't have anything to do with mentors, didn't have anything to do with like projects being sabotaged, anything like that. It literally was just that Rue and Eli's wedding was falling apart. It simply was that they like, first they all get food poisoning except for Maya and Hark, and then they volcano erupts, so the other wedding guests can't come to the wedding ceremony. When Avery almost drowns and Hark saves her, like I just felt like most of it like wasn't central to the two of them, and that made it less cringy for me. And I could, like I said, I read that straight through. It's just when things happen that like make me uncomfortable, like I'm like, oh, how's it gonna end? I need it to end soon. Like I don't enjoy the book as much, I don't know, but I just really liked that was the main conflict. It was just really fun and enjoyable, like what's gonna go wrong next. And I do think that this made me appreciate Rue and Eli a lot more, because by the end of the book, in Not in Love, the last chapter, the epilogue, is them getting engaged, and I was like, really? Like out of all the couples, I never would have guessed that they would be the one to be together. Like, you know, when people make those those videos that are like book couples I don't think would actually like end up together, or they would get divorced, I would put that I didn't think that Eli and Rue would last. But after seeing them in this book, I'm like, okay, like that gives them a little bit more oomph to support their relationship. I liked it, and I like them a lot better now. And I love a good spicy scene. Even though I say I prefer close door romance, I think this book had the perfect balance of it. We get the flashback of the first time they were ever together, and then we get when they finally, the two times they kind of finally get together, and then the final scene, which that's 4. That is kind of a lot, but I feel like she's reeled it in a little bit. Like if I'm remembering correctly, I think The Love Hypothesis only has maybe one or 2 really spicy scenes, so this is probably the second most, or the second least amount that she has. I don't know. I just felt like they were very tasteful. The one thing that I got like really annoyed about was how, like, this is totally a tangent I forgot to mention earlier. I got so annoyed that Maya kept being like, Hark, you were my best friend. You were my best friend for like 3 years. You were my best friend. Girl, he was not your best friend. Like, I just didn't like her saying that. But back to the conversation about the spicy scenes. They were done real tasteful. They were really good. There's one, okay, I'm not gonna say it because like I genuinely think this line coming out of my mouth would make me cringe so hard, but there is a hilarious line in the middle of a sex scene where I don't know why I find it so funny. Like, I don't, like, you might know, if you've read this book, you know what it is, and it's basically, okay, it's where in the middle of the scene it says he hooks his underwear behind his, so you're like, why did you write that? I don't know, it just made me laugh, and it like took me out of like the immersion of the scene. I was like, why? Both times I read it I was like, why did you write that? But it was hilarious. And I do have to say, the fact that Hark's like wildest fantasies is literally just Maya existing in his house. Oh my god, the line where he goes, I just want to hear you exist. But Maya living in his house, getting married to Maya, and then having kids with Maya, like that's his like kink basically. You vanilla man, I appreciate you. That was some like impeccable yearning from him, and the fact that like literally nothing was in his way anymore, I guess besides like society's perception and all of that, but the fact that like Eli did not care. Eli was like, Maya, don't break Hark's heart, and she's like, whoa, that's not me, it's him breaking my heart. She didn't say that to him, but when she's like, excuse me, that was funny. But also getting Tamron, who he like sees the reflection of Tamron, who's his stepmom, who married his father, who was so much older than her, and like being like, I won't do that to Maya. Buddy, you're not your dad. There's so much to say. I feel like this entire video, my thoughts have been so jumbled, but I love her books. I love talking about her books. But yeah, that was it. That was my first favorite. That was my favorite Ali Hazelwood books, ranked from 1 to 8, least favorite to most favorite. I feel like I've been recording this video for probably 2 hours now. I think my thoughts have been jumbled. Has anything I said made sense? Who knows? I hope you guys enjoyed watching me just ramble and rant about all these books. I really want to hear your guys' opinions on what you think are your favorite. What are your rankings? Oh my god, that'd be so much fun to see. Put in your rankings in the comments. Your thoughts about books that are my favorite or my least favorite. Try to change my mind maybe. But thank you. If you have stuck around to the end of this video, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!